Okay, I know a couple of people will definitely join us probably later.
Okay.
Not that they promise, but I know they would like that. So maybe we can start right now. This is my first hybrid or Zoom live meetup ever. This is my first time being host, so guys, please patience. I'll try to be a good host, but you can slam a couple times. Let me introduce this crew here. We are all enthusiasts, developers, designers, people who just like IT or just curious to see what is coming next. We call this crew WPKG. WP is for WordPress, KG is for our town, Kragujevac, which is short. I tend to organize these meetups regularly, basically once a month, at least this year. And I have good feedback, so I'll probably continue to do that as I'm one-man band. I'm the only person who is organizing it and need to blend with all my free time and family and so on. But I like the feedback, so it's driving me forward. Today we are going to have a special guest from abroad, which is the main reason why we are speaking in English. Jean-Baptiste, I don't want to butcher your last name. Can you please introduce yourself? And
Yeah, that's way too much complicated. So let's stick with JB. My
okay.
last name is Marchand-Arvier, but that's very French and that's super complex to say. And that's basically a big issue I have is like no one outside of France knows correctly how to spell my name. So that's why people stick with JB, which is very okay.
Perfect. Well, take a look at my last name. There's no chance you can pronounce it, so it's perfectly fine. JB is co-founder and SEO and CEO, sorry, of the company WP Media. You probably all know that company behind WP Rocket and Imagify plugins. Am I right?
Yes,
Uh,
I hope
I
so.
must say it's one of my favorite plugins, so I'm biased here. And the other person you can see is Marko Nikolic, who works for that same company. Am I right, Marco? Okay. Today, basically, Jean-Baptiste JB will speak about optimizing WordPress performances and why WordPress performances are not so scary thing at all. So, JB, please take the stage and start.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for the intro, and also thank you all for being there, and also you to organize a meetup. I mean, we have been meetups organizer in the past, and we know how hard in a way it is because you have to be all the time there. You have to organize, you have to take time to do that. But I mean, that's the beauty, and that's personally why I love WordPress, is mostly because of the community. Of course, WordPress is nice, but WordPress without his community is really not WordPress. And that's really why we love it, and why also we invest, let's say, time, effort into the community as a company. And me personally being there and also trying to participate more globally to WordPress, because that's an open source thing, and which always need us to be there, because we have in a way the power to move WordPress, and that's something quite beautiful. WordPress is great. WordPress is awesome, but sometimes WordPress is slow, and that's really why I'm here. The idea for me is not necessarily to explain you how to make WordPress fast, but in a way to explain you quite the basic of performance for you to at the end understand what you can do to make WordPress fast. Maybe the image of that is like I don't know in which country we say that, you know, but give a man a fish, he will like eat for one day, but teach him how to fish and he will like eat for the rest of his life. The time is in a way short. Usually, you know, to really know web performance, you need years, and I'm really far from knowing performance very well. So the idea for me is like to give you like global overview of what is web performance into WordPress, what is Google looking for, especially regarding web performance, what are the tools you are using. The goal is not to like do an advertisement of WP Rocket. Of course, I will present a little bit our approach, but that's definitely not the goal. And I will share my screen, have a small presentation to present web performance. And at the end, you will be able to ask me any question you like, and also to Marco, who is working with us since so many years. So first, thank you, Marco. You were like the #2 employee, and he's still there and working on customer support on WP Rocket. So he knows very, very well WP Rocket, very well our company, and very well web performance and our customers' issue. Let me check just how I can share my screen. You need to enable sharing screen on my side.
Try to do that. Not sure if I'll make it.
Yeah, I think it's on the video parameters.
Okay, can you try it now, please?
Yes. Okay, that should be good. Here we are. Okay, so my
Perfect.
screen have changed.
can see.
Okay, I will try just to make it full screen. No, I'm still having you. Okay. So just quickly as an introduction, but that's really again not the point. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of WP Rocket and WP Media, and we have so we are a remote company and we are building WordPress products, let's say, really focused on web performance. So our mission is relatively simple, is we try to help people having faster websites. And in order to do that, we've built several plugins. The first one is WP Rocket, which is like web performance focus, caching plugin at the beginning, but now we are way more than just caching plugins because web performance has changed a lot. We've built also Imagify, which is an image optimization service, which also has a plugin. And we have Rocket CDN, which is a CDN integrated into WordPress. And so today, just small numbers to give you in context, WP Rocket is used by more than 4 million websites. And basically, we have one new website which is added into WP Rocket every 40 seconds. If you have some interest into web performance, you should have recently heard about Core Web Vitals. I mean, recently, I'm talking about the last 3 years, probably. So Core Web Vitals is something Google is pushing, is a way for Google to tell you in a way if your website is fast or slow, but this presentation is definitively not to talk about Core Web Vitals because that's the second step of web performance, let's say. And if you don't have the basics, you will never be able to understand and fix, let's say, Core Web Vitals, which are really highly technical. And if you are not basically a front-end developer, you won't know what is Core Web Vitals and you won't understand how you can really fix it. And that's our job at WP Rocket, is making sure you don't need to be a developer to improve your Core Web Vitals. So the idea is to first talk about basics of web performance and basic about how Google is, let's say, measuring and pushing web performance. So just for the context, Google is pushing, I mean, since I know Google, since 20 years probably, web performance. And the way they are doing it is they first have tools in order to measure web performance, so that's page speed. And they are really communicating to the fact that website should be fast. And you need to understand why they are saying that. I believe they are saying that for two reasons. The first one is a good reason, which is they always push to about good website. And I believe no one likes to wait. And I believe everyone here would be deceptive if a website is too slow to be displayed. So they're always pushing in this good direction to the website owners, saying, if you want to provide a good user experience, your website should be fast. And so they are always pushing websites owner to have fast websites. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I mean, Google is is a business, and they have cost. And one of their biggest cost, I mean, specifically about SEO, is crawling websites. So in order to rank all the websites, they need to visit every website, and this has quite a lot of cost. And if your website is slow, this will cost them more, because this will like block some CPU, some server time for them directly. So if you, I don't know, if your website is like 50% slower, this will globally increase the cost. Like if all websites are 50% slower, this will increase the cost by 50%, basically. I mean, it's a bit more complex than that, but at the opposite, if websites are faster, they are able in the same time to browse more websites. So that's very interesting for them. And a way for Google to push it is to explicitly say that a website should be fast, and a fast website will have a better rank in SEO. Honestly, we've never known if that really exists, because we have example of super slow websites having excellent SEO and super fast websites having poor SEO. So of course there is probably some links. It's not the most important things, but we always took the approach of you should do what's the best for your users, and your users don't want to wait. And that's really proven that if your website is slow, they are going to go to the competitors. So let's go back to the basics and what was Google measuring, to talk a bit more about Core Web Vitals. At the very beginning of PageSpeed, they were only measuring good practice. So when you were putting your website, they were checking the number of requests your website is doing, what are the image format, how many files basically you had, if you did enable JZip compression, what was your caching policy, etc. And based on that, they were giving you a good or bad grade in terms of performance. And that was good in a way, but for us that was really bad, because they were not measuring the performance of a website, like how much a website takes to load, but only what are the good practice you have implemented into your websites. And we have been at WP Rocket very vocal about it. I think we wrote tons of blog posts saying that you shouldn't hear PageSpeed, because they're just giving information about the good practice. And you could have a website which was loading like in 10 seconds, which is extremely, extremely slow, but having all the good practices, and they're giving you a 10 over 10 for the 100 over 100 for web performance measurement, which is totally stupid. And with time, they move their approach, probably not thanks to us, but at least they did it, and that's really good, because that's really is moving into what a real user is living is not, because when you go into a website, you are not directly affected by the good practices. You are affected by how much basically the website is taking to load. And that's what they, in time, they introduce two metrics that they are measuring and they are putting when you do a page speed test, which is the FCP. So that's how much time it takes to display a content on your website. So basically they take the first content which is going to be displayed. Sometimes that's the title of your website, your logo, whatever, and they measure this time. That's the first thing, because that's reflect a little bit your experience, because when you are going to a website, you see that the website is getting loaded when you see the first thing basically getting loaded. And the other thing they are started to measure and they introduce into the page speed measurement is TTFB. TTFB is the time to first byte. So basically when you load a website, there are information which are sent between a server, so whether a website is hosted, and your browser, and this information are bytes, and they measure how much time it takes to get the first bytes. And so with time, what we see, and that's really excellent, is Google, the way they measure, or at least they show the measurement of a website, is they have moved from good practice to user experience. So that means today, just having good practice on your website, which was relatively easy in the past, is not enough. So what I meant by good practice is basically you were enabling any advanced caching plugin like WP Rocket or any other with a good configuration, and probably you had the great grade on performance because it's extremely easy to enable good practices. What was good practices at the time we started WP Rocket, and which are still very important, don't let me wrong, you still need to have these good practices. So these good practices was cache expiration. That's something very important. So the idea of that is a website is built with assets. We call them static assets. So that's CSS, images, JavaScript. And these elements are like the names they have, static, which means that they are not dynamic. They are not going to change because an image is always the same unless you change it, but you're probably going to rename it. So there is no reason to just load these images all the time. So that's where there is browser cache. So browser cache is a way to say to your browser, hey, this image or this CSS is not going to change. So keep it for 6 months, 1 year into your own cache, so the browser cache, so you don't need to call the server all the time. And so that's something extremely easy to set up. It's just some rules to put on the htaccess if you are using Apache as a web server, and that's something all the other caching plugins are doing. So I'm just going to list a few good practices that every caching plugin is doing, let's say. So my recommendation about that is if you don't have a caching plugins, you should have, because that's thanks to these caching plugins that you have the first good step, which is having the good practices. So border caching, just to explain a few things that these plugins are doing. The second thing is gzip compression. Now we are using other algorithm called Brotli. So the idea of that is you can tell to a server to compress some items. Like I'm going to take the same as example, like the CSS or the JavaScript. You can compress them, and the server or even the browser basically can compress them using gzip. So that's maybe something I don't know how technical all you are, but on your computer, you probably have heard about zip archive. When you have tons of files and you need to merge into one archive and you can compress them. You do a zip usually. So that's an algorithm, a compression algorithm, but there is other ones like gzip, and that's what servers usually can do. So the idea is to simply reduce the size of a file by applying a compression, so a gzip compression. Again, extremely easy to enable, just a few lines into the htaccess, for example, that all caching plugins are doing. Other things which are, I believe, important and most of the time enabled by default now on or at least you have the possibility to enable them, is lazy load. Lazy load is, like the name suggests, to load something into a different way. So when you are browsing a website, usually you first come to the website and you don't necessarily scroll, which you maybe go directly to another page, or you leave the website, or you will scroll but later. So if there are a lot of images above the fold, there is no reason to load them. So what we do simply is we say to the browser, in a way, all the images which are below, the fold, so which are not visible into the screen, don't load them because we are not currently display them. But as soon as you are going to display them, just load them. So we do that very easily thanks to JavaScript. And thanks to that, when you go to a website, for example, this website, the old page have like 50 images, but on the above the fold, on the top of the pages, let's say there are only, let's say 2-3 images, which means that at the first load, without scrolling, you are going to just load 2 images instead of the full 50. And this have a huge impact on web performance. So tons of free plugins which allow you to do lazy load, and so that's the basic of web performance. But there is not only that, and that's why also I want to give you a few practical solutions for your WordPress, because I believe you are here also to understand a little bit more about web performance, but also to know what are the solutions you can do in order to improve your website. And I think people who are working at WP Rocket, especially on customer support, can say the same. There are always people who are saying, okay, I have a caching plugin, or maybe I don't have. How can I make my website faster? What are the different solutions I can use? And I believe that always the first thing is hosting. I'm not going to, we are not using a lot of hosting on our site because we do, let's say, directly our own servers, which means that we don't have a lot of experience with existing WordPress hosting solutions. So I'm not going to recommend any kind of it, but make sure that the very first thing is make sure you have the appropriate hosting, because without that, you can have the best website in a way. You can have the best caching plugin, everything optimized. If your hosting is slow, this will never work. So a way to compare that is like it's the engine of your car. So if your engine is bad, as much as you optimize your car, your car will be always slow and not reliable. So make sure to pay, because at the end, all cheap hosting, let's say, are relatively bad. That's natural because they need to reduce cost, but not all high cost hosting are good. By saying that, I mean, you always at a point need to pay, especially for hosting, because this has a cost. You need a good server and you need to pay for it. So make sure you have a good hosting. Do your benchmark. They offer a lot of trial plans, so make sure to do some tests. Another thing people sometimes don't understand about web performance, it's a balance. And so that's why I've written a number of plugins. It's not exactly exact, because you can have 100 plugins and a fast website. But what you need to understand with web performance, it is a question of balance, because at a point, the choice you will do will affect the performance of your website. That's exactly, for example, sliders. Sliders are visually nice, let's say. They can be interesting in terms of marketing. However, they will always have a bad impact on your performance. And that being said, and by being extremely extreme, the faster website is like a blank HTML page. And as soon as you are adding new things, new images, new style, new JavaScript interaction, you are making it a little bit slower. So my point is not to say you should have a HTML page, but my point is you should always do a balance. Do you really need that extra plugin? Because, most of the time, plugins are not necessarily done in a good way in terms of performance. They're going to add a lot of CSS, a lot of JavaScript files on all your pages that you can't really optimize. So usually it's a shortcut, but it's to try to reduce the number of plugins. I've seen so many websites, you go to the website and you see 2 or 3 contact form plugin. And you have to understand that each contact form plugin is adding PHP code on your admin, which make it slower in a way, which is every contact form plugin is adding a CSS on all your pages. So it's just a CSS, but if you add a CSS, another one at the end, your whole website is slow. And web performance, there is usually no magic things to do. It's just a lot of work on like cleaning, removing what you don't need, optimizing. Otherwise, that would be way too much easier, and we wouldn't have any kind of job. So that's really, if you would have to have one message, if I would be able to provide you one message, is web performance is at the end a question of choice. Of course, there are tons of things you can optimize, but at the end, it's also choosing or not to do something into your websites. And that's a good thing and the bad thing with WordPress. I mean, it's extremely open, which means that anyone can create themes, can create plugins. The bad thing of that is the quality is not always there. And especially regarding themes, page builders, that's something we highly not recommend to use page builder. I mean, except Gutenberg, which is very good in terms of performance, but sometimes it's not enough because you're not a developer, not necessarily a developer. You don't know how to do a website, and you have you find a really nice website builder, which seems super easy to use with extremely good visual. That's true. That would be probably very nice. But at the end, this will make your website slower. So also the wall, because WordPress core is really focusing on that. Always try, if you can, to rely on WordPress native solution, Gutenberg, for example, which may not answer all your need. If not, you can go to another solution, but try to always go to the native WordPress things, because objectively, that's very optimized in terms of performance.
May
The other thing,
for
yeah,
a moment, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Regarding the previous bullet point, you mentioned about hosting to test while we are trying it, trial or whatever, and you mentioned testing before that. Do you recommend any specific tool or tools we can use for testing websites or hostings or whatever?
Yeah, so if you, depending what you are specifically testing, one thing which is extremely important is make sure when you are testing to have a real website, because even on a cheap server, if you have like just a small WordPress, you just install WordPress without anything, it will be fast for sure. But then, I mean, just really something like install WooCommerce, install a themes, which is, let's say, big, a few different plugins, and then you will have kind of real website. And if you want to test web performance, I mean, PageSpeed is really good in a way. What is good is everything is explained into PageSpeed in some technical aspect, which means that you need first to read, and that's usually the issue we have on customer support is because people don't read what is written on PageSpeed. So we need to explain them that they have to read or explain in other words, because usually it's a bit complex. So PageSpeed is really good if you are really, I mean, the best I would say is web page test in terms of information, but it's, let's say, more complex, more technical, but usually PageSpeed is really good. I don't know, Marco, if that we do recommend all the
these two, yeah, and GT Metrics, but it's now only paid solution. Like it was really before, yeah.
Yeah, GT Metrics was really good, but now, I mean, it's still very good, but you need to register, I think, and to pay for to start any kind of test.
Thank you. Please continue with the presentation.
Yeah, the other thing, so once you have your website, that's really mandatory, and I'm not trying to sell WP Rocket and try all the plugins as well to have a caching plugins, because so just for you to understand, it's going to be a bit complex, probably a bit long. What is caching? Caching, technically speaking, is a way of storing temporary information. So that's the pure definition of caching is, especially in in software engineering. Computers are always calculating things, and engineers have found that sometimes we are all the time recalculating the same things, which makes sense at a point. But if we are recalculating the same things, that would be worth it to save it temporarily, because data can change, and display the result of what we save, because instead of recalculating the things, you can simply display the results. A very practical solution to explain that in a human way is like, if I ask you, like, what is the result of, like, I don't know, like, I'm super bad with number, like 2084 multiplied by 825. No one knows. But if I'm asking that, someone is going to do the calculation on his phone, and he will have the number. And if I'm going to ask the question again in like 5 seconds, people will know, because they will remember directly the results and not the calculation. And that's basically what is cache. And there are tons of layers of cache, and the more efficient, let's say, on WordPress, I mean, the one which has the biggest impact is saving the page itself of the website. To explain that, you need to understand how a page is displayed. So I'm thinking about, you go to a website and something is displayed, and it's HTML. And in order to generate a page, an HTML page, WordPress, but all the websites are the same. You need to understand that there are a lot of calculation. So basically, there are some code in PHP, which is one to say, I mean, to do a lot of questions to the database, like, hey, what is this page? Do I have this content in the database? Is this user connected? Okay, if he's connected, I have to display that. Okay, give me the content. Give me also the comments. And this takes time, because that's request into the database. And what a caching solution, and base caching, and after there are other features, is doing is they are taking the results of all this calculation and saving directly into a file. So the first time a user is going to a website, to a specific page, the WordPress is doing all the calculation, takes time, and WP Rocket or other caching plugin are saving this result. And the other visitors, the next visitor, instead of doing the calculation again, we are going to give directly the results. And usually this have really a phenomenal decrease in terms of loading time. Usually you can have like a factor of 2 or 3 very easily. Like your not cache page can take like 6 seconds to load, and once being cached, it's loaded in like 1 or 2 seconds. But on top of that, there are a lot of front-end optimization, which has a lot of impact. But that's really the base. Take any caching plugins. WP Rocket can do the job very well, but any other caching plugins that will definitively help your website performance. There are a lot of options. Usually, it can create issues. That's true, because it's like front-end optimization, which is not all the time compatible with everything. So you can disable it, but as soon as first you have caching, it's already a good step. Then there is something we always recommend is image optimization. There is something extremely nice with image is we have, I mean, the nature of image is we're able to compress it, so to reduce the size, but keeping the quality very much. And that's more or less one of the only assets when you can do that, because on a CSS, you can't really optimize things. But on an image, you can really compress it. And this has a phenomenal results on performance, because we are able to reduce like the size of the image by like probably 70–80% in some time. And so if you multiply that by the number of images on the web page, can reduce a lot the wall size of a page, and which has an impact on the performance of a page. I don't have the fresh numbers, but usually 60% of the size of a global page is just images. So if you reduce that, this has a big impact. Another thing which can be done is CDN. So a CDN is like of course, simplifying it, is your server, or all the content into your server is duplicated everywhere in the world. Because usually when you have a website, it's physically hosted into a computer, which is called a server, which is into a data center, into a specific location, a city. And even if everything is fiber connected, this can take time. So let's imagine your server is in Paris and you have a visitor in New York. This will take some delay, probably 500 milliseconds. So the idea of a CDN is to replicate your website everywhere in an automated way, to make sure that if you have now a visitor of New York, there is another server in New York which is going to provide the content. This is extremely helpful only if you have international visitors. Otherwise, that's a waste of money and usually a waste of performance, because CDN servers are not as fast or as your direct server. So if you only have, let's say, visitors in Europe, don't care about CDN, don't spend money on that. If you have like global worldwide visitors, you should really invest on it. It's still important to talk a little bit, but very a little bit, because it's, I mean, I'm taking already quite a lot of time, and there are way too much to say about Core Web Vitals. But just
no worries, we have plenty of time, so just keep
yeah, just to give you, oops, sorry. I'm missing. Just to give you information about Core Web Vitals. So that's something Google has introduced probably 4 years ago. And this is metrics on how to measure performance. But I mean, you also have to understand that, and that makes things a bit more complex, that websites, the way we do websites, the technologies we're using for website has drastically changed since a few years, especially with all the front-end JavaScript framework, with all the interactions. So I'm basically talking about React, something like that you may have heard about, which is something we have not really moved yet into WordPress, which I believe is good. And so with all this front-end interaction framework, this creates, I mean, you don't have anymore the concept of pages in a way, because everything is like a single page and there are like internal requests into it. And so it's getting harder to measure the performance of different pages. And so what Google has focused on is measuring the interaction of a website. And that's really how they focus on measuring performance, is how when you interact with a website, how fast it's going to be. And for that, they have implemented 3 Core Web Vitals. So the first one is very interesting and important, but and we focused a lot on it on WordPress and WP Rocket, is LCP. So that's the largest content painful. So basically they measure how much it takes time to display the largest element on your website. Usually it's a big images. And because they believe, I mean, that's the most, in a way, important content of the website. That's something you want to read. And in terms of perception, it's like when this element is loaded, it's more or less when the website is loaded. Of course, there are tons of other things which are getting loaded, but in terms of perception, if you want to see a website, it's going to be the LCP. And so they are measuring it and giving you a score about that. And on our side, we do a lot in order to optimize that. The second one, and there are a lot to do into WordPress to optimize it. The second one is CLS. So that's something we rarely have into WordPress, and it's very often into full JavaScript website. Is what they call the layer shift, and the time with the layer shift is basically when when your website is loading, but in a way it's blank, and when it's loaded, everything has changed. So that's, I'm not sure I'm very clear because it's a bit complex to explain, but it's basically when there is a change into your layout, because something is loaded after we change the appearance of your websites. For example, imagine you have an ads, which is like, I don't know, 300 pixel height, but which is integrated in the middle of your content, but you loaded at the end of your pages and you don't, it was not ready to be displayed. Your website is loaded and then tack, the ad is getting showed. So this is CLS and that's not good, but usually we don't have that much. And the last one, which has changed recently, and in fact, so it was FID, which has been changed to INP. It's the first input delay. And so again, it's really focused on interaction. It's hard to move it for WordPress and to talk about it for WordPress. So the idea is when you are going to click to something on the website, how much time it's going to take between your click and the interaction. So the interaction of the website. And that's very true, you know, on full JavaScript website, when everything is already loaded and you click and you have another pages without a full refresh, which is something most of the time we don't have into WordPress. So don't really focus on that. And even if you would focus on that, most of the time you wouldn't have any kind of solution to fix it. And that's really the issue of core vitals for WordPress users, unless you're a front-end developer or plus with back-end ability, you are doing your own themes, you're integrating your own plugins, you will have full impact on that. And you will be able to change the way you do website in order to have proper impact on that. And however, if you are just a user, you just install the themes, you can't do anything about that except like blaming your themes and saying that to the person you buy your themes that there is a big CLS or ANP is not good and they should do something. It's not only the themes, but most of the time that's because, let's say, of the themes. But most of the time there won't be any way of fixing this, which make it very hard compared to the good practices that Google is still providing as a feedback, that you really are able to have impact on that, like with implementing lazy load extra. So that's the issue with core vitals. It's extremely technical and really hard to have any kind of solution to implement. And so a few advices. If you, let's say you have a website and you want to improve the performance of it, what are the first steps you could do? I would always recommend to do an audit. I mean, that's the very first step, is go take the URL of your website and send it to PageSpeed, to GTmetrix or other tools. Check the performance. Be careful because PageSpeed always puts mobile by default, which will always give a bad grade or lower grade. So move them to desktop because usually it's going to be more relevant on how you can improve things, and read everything because PageSpeed is described all the issue your website can have. Then if you don't have any caching solution, web performance plugins directly enable it with the documentation of these plugins to make sure that you enable the proper options, you don't do any kind of mistakes in terms of configuration, and do again the PageSpeed reports and see if there are things which can be optimized. Sometimes unless taking choice, you won't be able to do any kind of optimization. Just let me give you an example. You are displaying an ads on your website. This ads is loaded through a JavaScript, which is loaded on an ad server that you don't own. That's usually the case. And this ad server is not optimized or slow. So PageSpeed will say, hey, this script is taking way too much time to load. But this script is not hosted on your server, it's hosted on another server. So you can't do anything there unless like changing ad system or asking the person who hosts the ads to do some kind of optimization, there is nothing to do. So that's extremely important to really read the page speed report and try to think if this is something which can be controlled. And when I was doing a support a long time ago for WP Rocket, most of the issues was related to that. I mean, people were contacting us saying, "Hey, I have a bad grade on page speed," and so we were checking, and our answer were, "Yes, but we can't do anything because you are loading these items from external servers that you don't own, which are not optimized. So unless you don't load this element anymore, there is nothing we can do and nothing you can do." So with the details of the reports and try to figure out if that's something you can have an impact on. Probably I've never tried, but for sure that should be really helpful if you put the report on ChatGPT and ask him to like give you some advice about things you could do, explain you more in different terms. Definitively that should work. Second step is, second step was performance plugin, but the third one is like clean your WordPress. That's back to how much plugins you are using. Do you really need all these kind of, I don't know, fancy sliders or whatever? Because again, performance, it's a choice. I mean, if we're going to, if we are taking again the example of cars, if you think about F1 cars, which are, let's say, the fastest one, they don't have air conditioning. They don't have, I don't know, all the kind of things we have in our own cars, because that's the opposite of performance. And so that's the same with websites. Another thing which is extremely easy to do is optimize your images. We do that for free for a few megabytes per month with Imagify. There are other plugins which can do that, and usually that's extremely easy. There is no bugs because they simply optimize your images. You can do in one click, and that would be a good first steps. And after, the next steps, if you really want to go forward, is like read more about web performance, try to read and understand more core web vitals, because at a point you will see probably things that you can have impact on your websites. And yes, I think that's all for me. I talk quite a lot, much more than I was supposed to do. But however, we have plenty of time to if I'm able to answer any kind of questions you have, and we also have like probably 2 persons from the customer support. So if I'm speechless, I can be helped as well.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really insightful and raised some eyebrows, as I can notice. I'll let other people ask first. So
yeah, we always need a first question.
What you presented basically help us improve the website speed for visitors. Do you have any tips to improve WordPress admin experience in dashboard, something like that?
That's
other questions.
Yeah, that's a very good question, because just to understand, the cache that caching plugins are putting on websites are not working as an admin. So when you are connected into the admin, because admin are like highly dynamic, because you need to update things, you need to create content into it. So it's not compatible, let's say, with having a static content. So you can't have cache. What you can do, there are 2 things, I would say. First one, again, is clean your WordPress, because usually, not all of them, but let's make things simpler. All the plugins you add are going to add PHP code, which are executed into the admin. And it's very basic. The more PHP code, even if it's fast, the more slow your website can be. Some plugins add a tons of information into the database, which are required. For example, you install WooCommerce, your admin will be a bit more slower because yeah, there are a lot of things which are added, and WooCommerce is really great. We are using it, but that's the reality of things. This has an impact on your admin performance. And the last thing is like, yeah, your hosting. That's usually where you will see your hosting as a good performance is when your page is not cached. So basically the admin, and yeah, any kind of interaction. As soon as there is no cache, which is hurting, let's say, server and specifically database, which need to have really good servers to make it work correctly, you will see the impact of good or bad hosting.
While we are at the admin side of the story, I have an idea. I'm not sure if this is a question or basically an idea. I see a lot of beginners basically ask for how to solve an issue that they made change in WordPress website and cannot see it on front. And in 99% of the cases is basically clean your cache. What can we do to educate, let's say, beginners, that kind of people?
Yeah.
Any idea?
That's what we try to do. Honestly, that's super hard because when we talk about cache, and that's what I try to do, everyone is talking about it, but no one really know what cache is in a way. And if you know cache, probably into WordPress, let's say you have a WordPress with a caching plugins, there are probably 5 kind of cache, different kind of cache, which are which are working together. Like you have the PHP cache, like OP cache, you have the static cache, you have the border cache. So there are all this kind of stuff, which means that when you say to someone, clear the cache, that doesn't make sense. Which exactly? The good question would be, yeah, which one? And there are some kind of cache. I mean, you can clear, but that makes things complex in a way. So, and again, that's the beauty of WordPress. Extremely simple, but if people don't understand most of the time how a website is working, how a border is working, so that makes things extremely complex. So you are right. Education is necessary about this kind of subject, but you're right. Clear the cache and clear all the cache.
Yeah, that was the case recently. I got a client's website and made a simple change with Visual Builder because that was the website built with, and I could not find the issue. So basically, I needed to log into that specific hosting platform and find their caching stack and clear their cache to be able to see the change. Yeah, it's a common problem to find everything and educate everyone. So
yeah, and you can do mistakes. So for example, browser cache is working with what we call key value. So the key is the name of the file, and the value is the content. So for example, you store the browser is storing like style.css of a website. And let's imagine you are not aware about all these kind of specific things, and you update the content of style.css, but without changing the name, which means that for the browser, there is still this file with the name style.css. So for the browsers, nothing has changed. And we've said in the rules that they should like keep all the static content for like 6 months. And which means that unless the person explicitly clear his browser cache, which is difficult to do, you need to go to the specific settings. He won't see the change into the style.css because the border will still have into his own cache. And if you're a website owner, there is nothing you can do. If it's on the cache of the border of a user, it's too late. The only solution is like change the name of the file, because the border, if you do like style2.css, or usually you use what we call a query string, like style.css interrogation mark version equal 1. So that's the only way, creating another name so the cache is clear in a way.
Is there any specific like technical requirements for WP Rocket and Imagify to work on WordPress website or server, something like that. Do you have some recommendations or to have or to avoid?
No, I think we have the only thing, I mean, you need a WordPress website. We have the same version of PHP. I don't remember exactly which below which PHP version we are not compatible, and that would be also a good advice. Is with time, all the especially PHP and WordPress is getting faster and faster because they are working on performance. So that's another recommendation would be to make sure that your PHP version and WordPress version is always the latest one, and you can check that with your hosting.
Okay, perfect. Do we have any other questions?
Hello, my name is Darko, and I would like to know which is the best free and paid plugins for overall optimization of our sites that have a lot other possibilities, not to install many plugins, but just one which have a lot of options.
So you're talking about performance, right? A performance plugin to make your website faster. Yeah. So paid, I might be biased, but I would recommend WP Rocket. So the idea of WP Rocket is to take all the web performance things, backend, front end, and into an easy way, and to make sure you don't have to spend hours configuring on it. Free, maybe the WP Super Cache. I don't know, Marco, if we do recommend something free and all the plugins that we are following. All right, you're on mute.
We do not have the recommendation, but we usually, I mean, people usually think that W3 Total Cache is still quite good, but requires some technical knowledge to set up. So I don't know about WP Super Cache. It's still very basic. I think no one uses it any more basic, or we don't recommend it.
I have an anecdote for this question. I believe I saw a Lightspeed Cache plugin that had like 5 million installs, something like that. So it's quite popular.
Yeah, Lightspeed is really good. Yeah, that was the one I was looking for.
Yeah. Last year or 2 years ago, I'm not sure, this same spot, we had a speaker who is tech-savvy developer, both WordPress side and server side. So I just can be quiet before him. I was speaking that day about the WordPress optimization, mentioning WP Rocket, and said that for some specific hosting solutions, hosting solution will provide you their own caching plugin or optimization plugin. And I said that with WP Rocket, I basically every time managed to get better performance than the native plugin or whatever they are offering. After that same guy came to the stage and said that Lightspeed Cache is way better. And we have nothing to say about that. Till this day, I'm trying to use the Lightspeed Cache. It's okay. It does require some more technical knowledge, but still I cannot beat WP Rocket's score with Lightspeed Cache. It's probably my technical knowledge, but I still cannot do that.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I don't really want to enter into the debate which is best. I mean, we all, I mean, try to provide the best performance for websites, but in different way with different approach. Our approach is trying to not having too much options and not allow people to change that much things because we strictly believe that we are the expert in web performance, and people who manage websites, their job is to manage website, create content, for example, or sell things into their website, but they shouldn't take like 2 hours on configuring every part of their website. So that's why we really focus on making something simple, which might not be for anyone. So yes, if you want maybe something more with more settings where you can adjust more precisely things, and which is free, Lightspeed could be a good solution.
Yeah, but is there a technical requirement for Lightspeed Cache to work?
I would say, I mean, no technical requirement instead of your own technical knowledge, let's say.
Okay. Perfect. Nice. No? Okay. Well, I'll continue. I see a growing trend for like new hosting solutions, cloud-based hosting solutions that provide like good speed and performance results. Besides Rocket CDN, do you guys have any plan to provide such complete hosting solutions for WordPress websites, or you're strictly on plugin?
Yeah, so that's something we thought in the past, and we really investigate, and that's something we wanted to do. We didn't continue, and in the same time, our company in a way has been acquired by a hosting company, one.com. So they have their hosting solution. So we don't want to work in the same time on different things. So we really want on our side to be only focused on our plugins, because also while working on the hosting solution, let's say, we found that this is a total different solution, different job, let's say, which need really different knowledge, different things. And yeah, we prefer really focused on things we are good at and that we really love about it. So plugins and web performance solutions.
It's perfect. Okay, I believe I have one last question for you. I'm not sure what to ask further. How can developers and people from community generally help with contributing for your plugin?
Yeah.
Any way to do that?
Yeah, sure. WP Rocket is open source, like most of our plugins, so directly into GitHub. However, that's not something we do encourage a lot, and we're changing a little bit because, in fact, we had people who did contribute to WP Rocket, but the thing is, we need time in our site to like making sure the code is good, that this is in the plan to implement. So I can say we're not really good into accepting collaboration. Let's say you can push something, but it's not sure that this is going to be integrated into WP Rocket. So I'm not necessarily going to recommend to do it because that might be deceptive for you. However, so we change a little bit our approach about open sources. We, in the same time, are developing other things, kind of framework on how to do plugins, for example. That's something we are working on, where we would be way more like open source in a way and really more collaborative into it. So we'll communicate more, relatively soon about this kind of tools. And so you would be able to, if you want to contribute to that, that would be way more better, because you might be disappointed because you would provide like a pull request on WP Rocket, which wouldn't be accepted after a few years.
Well, we all have some limited resources, so I get it.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine to be open with that. Marco, do you
have a question? We have a
Can I
question
ask
for
one
Marco.
I would like to ask, per your opinion, what is the next big challenge for WP Rocket in terms of performance issues to solve? Like the latest one was improving LCP, largest contentful paint, which we did in 2.16 in latest version. But do you have idea what is going to be the next big thing to tackle?
If I'm right, the latest improvement was lazy load above the fold, something like that, right?
Yes, to exclude lazy load, yeah, because if you, I mean, you need to display them as soon as possible. So if you lazy load these images, that's not good. So tricky question, Marco.
Oh, sorry.
No. That's really things which have changed with Core and all the LCP, for example, measurements. Is we now need to find features which help solving this, because as a end users, you don't have any kind of control on how to improve these metrics. So on our side, we're digging a lot about, okay, these are all the features which could improve this kind of core vitals, but it's pretty technically hard to do it. And we are also doing a move. So before WP Rocket, I mean, at the beginning of WP Rocket, everything was run on the plugin side, but now we are moving to a mixed approach where we are running some code into our cloud system, because there are some specific things which need to be done externally. We need to have a browser visiting a website to do like extraction of things. So that would be I believe and we're right in the middle of it, of taking the good decision about which things we're going to still do on the plugin and the other things that we would do on our SaaS. And I don't have answer yet, but that's.
So that's actually already a solid answer, a good answer, because in terms of it's still going to be better performance when we do things different on our side, right? Because if we do something which is now done on the plugin side and we can do it faster on the SaaS, it's already a good thing. I have just one thing, because many people who are developers, actually few of them who I talk to, always mention that lazy loading the content would be the great thing, and that is missing in WP Rocket. And they say that like it would be something that would make them really use WP Rocket always. Like they do that, but not all the time because of missing this.
Yeah. So without revealing secrets, that might be the next major version of WP Rocket.
Cool.
So good catch.
Yeah.
Any other question, or you want to? You have something to eat and drink after the meetup?
Well, you'll see in September. Short answer, yeah. If there are no further questions, guys, no. Okay. JB, thank you a lot for your time today.
Thanks for inviting me.
I'm really proud to have such great guests. You are not the only great guest here in our town, but you are one of a kind, definitely. And thank you for that. Marco, thank you for making this happen. We wouldn't have this without you. JB, let's close up. I know WP Rocket does not have a trial period, right? You have 14 days money back guarantee, if I'm right. Something like that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If people behind me want to try it, should go that route, or you have some special offer for us?
Yeah, I didn't prepare anything. So yeah, you can try. I mean, you need to buy, and if you are not happy, you can directly ask for a refund. However, I will create just after a coupon that you can use if you want to try. You will get like 10% off, and and you can that would be like meetup 10. I'm going to put into the chat. What's the name of your meetup group?
On meetup.com, you'll find under WordPress Serbia.
Okay.
I'll send you a link on LinkedIn or something.
So I'm putting the meetup 10. So it's not active yet. Give me like 5 minutes after if you are going to buy.
Okay. I'm leaving it in chat. Meetup 10 uppercase. Thank you for that. And if anyone wants to find you, how can get to you? How can we reach you?
On LinkedIn with my complex name, on Twitter as well. So you can. I'm going to put my my LinkedIn profile. If you want to ask any question, would be happy to answer. So
just forward to Marco.
Yeah. And if you Google me, you should find me really easily.
Okay, perfect. I want to personally thank you and thank you in front of our crew. And I don't want to bother you anymore. Thank you very much. It was really insightful. Even I consider myself an advanced user. I learned something new. So it was really
I'm
great.
super happy then. Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for
And yeah,
joining.
wish you great food if you have and drinks.
Well, maybe we'll just continue with conversation between us or something like that if there is anything to explain, and we will go to the bar.
Okay. Enjoy.
You
See you
too.
soon.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Vidimo se, pozdrav. Ćao.
Zdravo, Marko, hvala ti.
Uživajte. Ćao.
Ćao, Zoko.
Ciao, ciao.